Like benzene or something, I don't know. I gotta get up here.
You're gonna just stand around talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's your mother?
How you doing, bud?
Good, how are you?
Good.
She said I could just tell her everything.
You can't get her out of the house.
Not really.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Okay, we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, we got, are you here?
I'm here.
Gary and myself.
Did they give you the oath in tobacco?
I took it from Brubaker.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to talk to
You do? Okay. I'll get that for you.
Okay, I'd like to open a meeting by, with a couple of appointments for the Board of Authority. I'd like to appoint Carrie Posey as the treasurer for the Board of Authority, and Bob Woodruff as a secretary for the Board of Authority.
Can I reappoint?
All those in favor? All those in favor?
Madam.
Opposed? Don't have any, okay, thank you. The meeting was posted more than 48 hours in advance, so the public be aware of the meeting, which brings everyone here tonight. And we don't have minutes from the previous meeting. We'll have them at our next meeting to approve. So with that, I guess we'll move on to what we're here for, the discussion of the fire hall.
I have a question.
Yes.
How are you guys going to do your money?
Do you want to know that?
Are you charging or, yeah, I mean.
We've been told we should charge, or we better charge.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, and what will that be?
That'll be $75 a meeting.
Okay.
What else do you want to know?
Well, I'm doing my budget, so I want to put it in there because we have to be put into the authority.
Okay.
So, because you're working with Beaverton Township. And
Yes.
you're working with that money in the city.
City.
So that's what I need to know.
Do you think anyone has a problem with that rate of pay?
I don't think why they should,
Okay.
except you were doing it for nothing before.
That's right. We were.
That's fine. Yeah, you should get paid for it. I mean, that's what your job is gonna be.
It's your township.
Madeline, what is the fire? Is that each or total?
Out of township.
That's each.
That's each.
How many meetings? Sorry, Tab Faber, Beaverton, Tobacco Township. How many meetings?
Well, this is our fourth one we've had.
In a year and a half.
Oh, so it's not too often.
No.
No. So then, but this is the fourth one this Board of Authority has had.
Oh.
So we're behind, is what I'm saying.
But is there any minutes to that?
To what?
To the meetings that you already had? With this Board of Authority?
I guess not.
Well, then, you didn't have a meeting, did you?
I guess not.
Okay.
If that's the way you want it, if that's the way it has to be.
Okay.
This is our first meeting as a Board of Authority.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
We're punched in.
All right.
I'd like to say something.
Okay.
Who determined that we were gonna get paid? If I understand right, each entity of this fire department voted on this and the money. Because when I volunteered, I didn't know anything about it, and I was told that we were gonna be taking the money because it was voted in. They had voted for it.
Who voted for it?
Is that coming from Tobacco Township, Bob?
Yep.
Okay.
Can we find that out?
Well, look at your bylaws.
I I have no bylaws.
I'll give you some.
Wouldn't you have been at the meeting that they voted on, Madeline?
No,
You weren't there?
no, because I had three guys and Bart is for Beaverton Township, but the other two quit. That's why you see the new board here.
No, I mean, the meeting, nobody seems to know when they voted on when to establish the pay. Was it a fire board meeting or a township meeting?
I'm not sure, Matt. I was told by Bill, I believe Bill is our township supervisor for tobacco. And when he swore me in at the fire department's first meeting we had, he said, no, you will take pay because it was budgeted for this. He said other,
Well, see, they all was working for nothing. They said they didn't want any pay. So therefore, we didn't do
Yeah,
anything. But
originally.
we did put money in the bank. We put $1,500 into chemical bank. The fire department did, to start the checking account. And I give the checking account, you got all the stuff.
I have it right here.
Yeah, I
That'll
don't
go
know
to
if you
Carrie.
could say, use the same book or not. You can take it over there and they might just reinstate it, I don't know.
Okay.
But they took the money and they closed the account, but they started out with 1,500. And the stamp, the other man has had the stamp. No, not Jack.
O'Rourke. Bob.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll check on that,
But you are supposed to get paid.
okay. Are we going to be overpaid?
Well, it depends on what you think you're worth. Seriously, it all depends on what you guys come up with. That's fine.
All right, all right. We'll table that for now. Is that okay, Bob?
yeah, take.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to new business then, which would be actually getting started on getting this Fire Hall rolled. We've had a lot of input. We had Mr. Boudreaux here last week to give us some examples of fire halls that he's done in the past, and that's all that was, just some ideas. And we are wide open for ideas from anyone here that may want to participate. We have a lot of plans here. We've been down a lot of roads, and we haven't found the end of one yet. So,
Mr. Lang, did you check on the bank?
Yes, I did.
So you talking to me, I'm thinking.
Bill, you can have the floor.
Well, I got a hold of Chase Bank, and what they're telling me, I'll give you this, is that we should contact one of these two attorneys, and then they said there are two programs that are actually better for small fire departments than borrowing directly from the bank. And one is from the USDA Rural Development, and the other one is from the state of Michigan. And they said the way this one works, which sounded a lot like the mortgage deal that got everybody in trouble, they pool numerous loans from small municipalities and then sell those on the market. And they thought we could get the loan for about 3%. And according to that state of Michigan website, the time to pay is anywhere from 3 years to 30 years. And it can be set up however it works best for the municipality. And that's why they said these two attorneys know about setting it up.
right back to USDA again.
Well, it's also this Michigan site that's.
Same thing, government.
It is, and I'm telling you, I don't
15
like it.
years,
I don't like it
can't do
either.
it. Hmm?
Because I think we ought to be able to go and get a loan directly from the bank.
Well, I do too, but they won't let you.
I know. But what this guy is saying is, if you get a hold of one of these attorneys,
Who are they? Because we deal with Miller and Canfield, right? Yeah, we deal with Miller and Canfield. And they're the ones that helped me put this building authority together.
one of them is from Miller Canfield.
Okay.
The other one's from Dickerson Wright.
Is his name Mann? Steve Mann handles,
No, his name is Craig Hammond.
yeah, him too. So Miller and Canfield does a lot of stuff with the city.
Well, anyway, according to this guy, it isn't like you have to build that $2 million building. You can borrow for what you need, and anyway, I've got all the stuff on how to get to the state of Michigan website.
I talked to him last week at the convention. Steve Mann from
Talk
Miller
to who?
Canfield. And they have it's bond council when you're building a fire hall or anything. So they're good. So Gary, he deals with them constantly.
What's your position here?
I'm just
You're like the
I'm taking
secretary,
the
right?
minutes. I'm taking the minutes
All
right now.
You're taking the minutes.
No,
I think.
he wasn't at the fire board meeting the other night.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why, because I heard you say you were going to the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all. Besides, I'm the clerk for Beaverton Township. Did you know that?
I don't care.
Okay.
Have the three of you got any questions about it?
No, but you say you'd leave that with me, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'd be great to have.
I can email it to you, because then you can just click on those big long links and it'll take you right there.
Okay, so you want my email address on here?
Yeah.
Good.
Can I add one thing that I heard? Some of the hang-ups, complaints from last year, from even me personally, has been the fear of some kind of attachments to a USDA loan, a federal loan, when there's all these requirements that, hey, we're getting a good deal, it's extended, we can afford this, but if we're going to do this, there's going to be some costs involved, that we might not have to go through different functions of the building with traditional financing. Did I not hear, Bill, that may not be true? So that's what we need, the lawyer or someone that, sure.
What's that, Tab, can you say that again?
Try to clarify it, is the fear from people like me on my side would be, if we go with the USDA, we get told that, well, since it is a federal funded job, there's these requirements with the federal funded project. So we'd be overbuilding compared to what we might have Fed or someone locally or JBS build, only because we're told we have to. We have no choice in that. I've heard recently that may not be the case. We could use those plans that we already have and still get the government loan, but it'd be half as much money. Just because we can extend that loan and get the payment close, so we can get more for $60,000, that's not necessarily what we should be thinking about doing, I don't think. My opinion.
Yep. We gotta look into it, but we can't just take for granted that the initial loan they say they're gonna give us is gonna build our fire department without tacking on extra costs.
Right.
Okay? And I think we're all on the same page. We wanna keep that fire department down as low as we can and get the biggest bang for our buck.
Because you was in tobacco and me in tobacco, we're almost at $1.5 million now, right?
When the lady was up here, we talked to her, I was one of them, we talked to her from USDA. We got into that discussion about if we got that kind of loan, do we have to build, go green? Do you have to do this? Do you have to do that? She said, absolutely not. it's not a grant. If it was a grant, yes, then you would have, the way she talked, have to go build it green, go to all the specifications. But as a loan, she said, no, we didn't have to go building green, we didn't have to do this, we didn't have to do that.
See, we already applied for the grant, but.
Grant or loan?
We didn't get any money. That's why we had to
Right,
go
we got turned
start,
down.
we got turned down. So,
One thing.
Good.
yeah.
No, I mean, John Molinar at that last legislative breakfast touched on that. All of these plans to keep getting grants from the federal government are like an end run around the requirement that our budget be balanced. And the federal government doesn't have the money anymore. And what he more or less stood up and said is, you have to start living within your means, because this money isn't gonna come rolling in from the federal government anymore. And that's,
And whether we get it from the federal government or the state government or another government, it's still all our money, okay? And that's what this boils down to. And if you guys are talking about, and this is how my limited mind works on building this building, if you go contract through one building company, say, and you contract them to build a building, and they get a percentage of how much it costs to build that building, their interest isn't building you a building at a good rate. Their interest is in building you a building so they get the best bang for their buck.
That's right.
So that's what we're trying to stay away from. We dealt with it when the school was trying to get their millage passed. Same thing. We're gonna pay these people to build us a building, and their interest is to get that as big as they can so that their cut's bigger. We broke it down. Bill broke it down. It's crazy. So that's what our concern is as a taxpayer, as a citizen. I want you guys to have a great fire department, but I want it done in a means that doesn't break my budget and everybody else's budget in this town.
Yeah, and I think what we saw last week, you know, $2 million, that's
way too high.
too high. That's,
We're still a small community. And we got a school system that needs some money. We know it needs money. But we gotta start working with the budgets that I have and that you have and everybody else sitting in this room has. Because I hear everybody say when they want a millage, just as a half mil here or a half mil there, well, it's only 50 or 60 bucks. Well, it's only 50 or 60 bucks to you, or 50 and 60 bucks to them. Pretty soon it's another $300, $400 to me.
Right.
And I own 2 big pieces of property in this county. So there's a point where everybody runs out of money.
We understand that. We're in the same boat everybody else is here. We're just on this side of the table.
Yeah.
We understand. One thing that Ted said too, though, before we decide anything, we know we're gonna have to have an attorney look all this paperwork over. And it's gonna be his responsibility, because I'm not gonna be able to read through that cluster and figure it out.
But don't we have an attorney, isn't that what, you guys saying we work with that,
Miller and Canfield.
Miller and Canfield.
That's who helped me put the building authority together.
They just help you put the build.
They'll play a big part, Paul, in
Yes.
the bond issue.
Yeah, you gotta have an attorney for that.
But for our local concerns here in any paperwork, we've already established a working relationship with Dean Boroff on Claire. And as we move forward here, we'll actually get into contractual situations with the attorneys, with whatever architect that we pick, whatever engineer that we pick, so we know exactly what we're going to be paying these people ahead of time. So that we have some means to track what the costs are going to be and so on and so on. So we've already got the attorney established for our issue. She drew up the bylaws of the commission here. She also put the articles of incorporation together. So she's already played a important role in getting us this far.
Good, that way we don't have to get halfway into it and find out, oh, we're supposed to have an attorney or a lawyer to get involved and start all over again.
Could I have a follow-up onto that question? You mentioned architect and engineer, which seems to preclude the absence of having a design-build company come in and do it when you don't have an architect or an engineer's fees. All you've got a design build company like Fed or one of the other companies that can come in and do the whole project.
Well, that's kind of a twofold question, and the answer to half of it is, at the fire board meeting prior to the last one, the fire board had a motion and it passed that we would continue to work with Alfred Rowe and Rowe Engineering because we already had a substantial amount of money already invested in this group.
How much?
Over 20,000, I think, at this point. I don't know the exact figure. And then the other half of your question, the answer is, if we go through the process of the USDA loan, which it looks like that's probably the way that we'll end up going because we've already been to the banks and we know the banks won't go as long term as what's needed to make the payments small enough. The USDA requires that you have a licensed engineer and a licensed architect that they can work with and see this plan through. So USDA does not allow for design build unless that company has licensed architect and engineer on staff. But even if we could find one and that was acceptable, what do we do with the investment we've already tied up with the group that we've selected? And again, the fire board has made a motion and it passed to stick with these people. Apparently the fire board doesn't have any negative concerns with the firm about engineering.
But that was one thing the bank guy told me, is you don't have to have this engineer and stuff like you're talking about. And as far as spending $20,000 for the architect, if it costs another $1 million because these guys are in charge, I'd say that's just throwing good money after bad. And when I built my building, I did not hire an architect. I got a hold of a couple of different builders and said I basically need a building this size, just like you guys worked out with FED and these other couple of companies, and they brought the plans in, and I said, I want this one. And I can't see any reason that the local government can't do the same thing, make the best decision that'll get us the most bang for the buck. And I think between FED and is it JBS, there's only $5,000 difference. So these guys are coming in pretty good. And why pay somebody another, it would be $1.4 million, because they're going to tell us they know what they're doing. We can look at the work that FED's done, that JBS has done. Why would we spend all that extra money?
Well, then you got on top of that, if you have an architect and an engineer, you've got their 6% on top of everything. You could take the 20,000 and kiss it goodbye. It's gone. Start fresh.
Goudreau was saying 7 or 8.
That they're talking about, I think it needs to be cleared up, was stuff that had to be done anyways. It was site soil samples. It was all kinds of surveys in order to get that stuff done that would have had to been spent wherever it went to, because it ended with them. That's how it was. That's what I recall from the fire board meetings. It's not saying stick with a horse in the middle of a race. It was, we spent this money. There's also supposed to be plans somewhere, design plans, that in that 20,000 was paid for. That's what I understood with that. Well, we spent this with them. Yeah, it's money we would have had to spend anyways for evaluation of site and other studies to be done.
So you got a bang for the buck then.
Yeah.
the soil samples and everything have already been all paid.
We've got that done.
Yeah.
That's
That's
all
all-
taken care of.
That's part of that money that they're talking
Right.
about.
That 20,000 that we're talking about from Good Roof? Okay, you're saying the soil samples and surveying,
That was involved in that, and they also presented, that was some fee because we had such an issue about, getting, at least applying or showing that we did something for the grant stuff to the public, to say this is what we've done, to give the actual numbers to people. That was part of that money they went ahead and did for us.
and we have the paperwork for that too, Matt?
Good Row should have that, or,
There should be a
These are the soil-
portfolio.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not right now.
yep. So I mean, I think the soil samples alone ran 12 grand to drill 7 holes out there. I mean, but that's all stuff that I believe would have had to been done anyways, the way I've been
Would that be
informed and
perk-
stuff like that.
the
It
perk
had to
test?
be all done
Yeah,
anyways.
that's part of a,
Soil drainage and
Yep. So I
Yeah,
mean,
it is
it's
quite
not
extensive.
wasted money. I mean, there were stuff we got.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's good. So you're
So you
really
have to
not
repeat
tied
that.
to that architect and engineer. Except
Maybe
by
feel
the,
better
except by the
by
board.
saying that.
Am I to understand that the board has said you have to stay with those guys? That's what the fire board said.
That's what they agreed on.
Did they make a motion? And I mean, that's in writing, so you're stuck
no
with it
minutes.
until they change it.
Or is that one of the meetings that doesn't have?
I
minutes?
don't recall that.
The biggest item here is that, again, big if you go with the government loan, you're gonna have to go with the architect and engineer.
And do not these places have
If we
that?
had the cash, or if we went with a local bank, we could get
I believe.
anybody to
No,
build a building.
Gary,
with
that's
that.
what that guy at Chase Bank said, that you do not have to.
I think it's first of all, I mean, I've seen things and they should be designed and engineered, but that's not saying that FED or JPF doesn't employ a architect.
Or they hire them separately, you know,
You
go
have to-
subcontract
you
them.
have to have,
They both-
But
I
what-
can clear something up. To build any commercial building, be it a fire department, a grocery store, or even a gas station, you can't even get a building permit unless it's stamped by an architect.
And an engineer, I can guarantee it because I just paid for it.
That doesn't matter what building it is. FED, for instance, the Northport Fire Department. The only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I was up there and looked at it, I worked up there, they got a USDA loan for that, helped pay for part of that. And FED built that. So, I don't know where we need to have a specific architect or engineer to pay them, like Bill was saying, an extra 1.4 million to build a building that's already been quoted out for less than $1 million.
And I will guarantee that if FED quoted that out, that engineer cost is built into that because he has to take that drawing to an engineer and an engineer has to sign off on it. I put a 2-bay extension on my shop and I had to take my drawing to an engineer so he would sign off on my 2-bay extension. It's just one of those things that has to happen to get your permit. And that's your engineer right there and your architect.
And I agree with your comments, if you can find financing other than a governmental loan. You can find financing somewhere else.
But
But
yeah,
you got your
what
engineer and
you're,
your architect right there.
you don't need the additional architect and engineer if FED has an architect and engineer that can stamp those drawings.
That's true, if USDA will accept them, that's fine.
Paul
Yeah.
just said they did that one up north,
Yeah.
and they accepted them, they got a USDA
And
loan.
as I've said all along, FED and all the other construction companies in our area will all have a right to bid on this job.
I guess the question I have
That's
though with
great.
that, Gary, is that was said at our fire board meeting and it kept coming back, yeah, they have an option to bid that. But the only ones that comes is if those bids go to Good Row.
Right.
And then we get the bid. So to me, there's a tack on there.
Yep.
And
That's
another
why we're
thing
putting
is
the-
I need to
It
bring
goes
up,
into the state construction book and all the
actually, they have to
contractors
pay a fee.
see that.
The construction companies actually have to pay a fee to get, if they're doing it, they gotta pay a fee to the architect engineer company so they can bid on it. And I can guarantee you, they're not gonna pay a fee to an engineer and an architectural company when they don't have to because they already do it. That's how they can get these companies that don't have architects and engineers bid those jobs like that. What was that?
And they're not adding that 6% on either, Paul.
Carrie,
Correct.
who was the company out of Gladwin that was doing that one in Merrill?
Hardwood Hills.
Hardwood Hills.
Hardwood Hills, yeah, Tom Blue.
They don't, I know they don't have an architect, they don't even have a guy do drawings, 'cause I used to do I did drawings for them. I've done plans for them. So,
Yeah,
they're
I'm
gonna.
sure there was an architect and an engineer that was hired, to do that, because that was a USDA project.
But, you know, I'm
And
just
these
bringing
guys
this up.
These guys are telling us, every one of them, that we can build the original plan, besides building that.
Now Shane, that was 11,700 square foot,
Yeah.
6 bays and the helicopter pad and everything.
I think the helicopter pad is something.
Well, we've decided we're gonna,
Yeah,
we can park that in Dave's field or something.
There you go.
But, I guess my point is, like everybody's saying, is that these people do this every day. JBS did over here at St. Gobain, was 24,000 square foot. It's on the books. Anybody can go talk to Mark Roble, just like I did, called him, he was in charge of the project. They put in parking lot, they resurfaced all their other ones. That's 3/4 of that building is clean room. It's fully sprinkled. They figured their loss in production for being down while they had to be down, their machines moving and everything, their guys' labor and everything. And that, they figure with lost profits and everything, that project will come in at 1.9 million. And I just, me personally, I have a hard time swallowing that somebody's gonna give us a 7,200 square foot building that's gonna cost 2.4 million. We have an example of something that they did, has to be engineered, had to be everything else by guidelines.
They're all local guys too, Shane? Local
JBS is the
companies?
one that did that. And then I called some people that, you know, did these original quotes and asked them how good they would be. And they said, we would gladly let you look at if there's any difference. And one told me a price he'd build it for, sign a contract right now, but that's your guys' job. It's not for me to get in the middle of.
I guess the bottom line here, which we can quit going around and around on it, the bid will go to Goodrow, but you guys should be able to also take those same plans and send them to JBS, send them to FED, send them to, without the loop through Goodrow, get a bid also. That's, I guess, all we're asking on that, and that's all I'm asking. Why can't that be done?
Well, I'd like to do one thing before we do that, is we gotta check out like what Bill was saying. We gotta check to make sure that all these companies that we're talking about can build all these. They have licensed architect and we can get the loan if we have to get a federal loan. That'd be the first thing we need to do. Instead of just,
There's a state loan too.
okay, I've got that wrote down, Bill. It's state loan and, federal. Yep.
USDA.
FED, yep.
Yeah, USDA.
And what the Chase Bank told me was, with the state, you can construct that the way you want to do it. You don't have
The
to.
financing.
No, the way
building
that you
itself.
want to build the building, and they're going to provide financing. He says that, because I specifically asked him, do we have to have a separate architect and let this out for public bids to everybody? And he said, no, you can do that the way you want to do it. And I believe what worked out the best for us was when we sent notice to 3 or 4 companies and said, what kind of a fire hall can you build us?
Yep.
And we got back these other
Estimates.
plans.
Yep.
And they're saying you can do that. So, I mean, who says we have to go hire an architectural firm and go through all this? I've never seen any paperwork that says you have to do that.
Who can we find out and have that back for these guys?
The USDA lady was here once, and, I mean,
She
yeah, it was already,
Through those
not even a
attorneys.
question.
She was ready to sign paperwork.
Yeah.
I think the discussion, my opinion, why this discussion's happening, going around, is really trying to convince you guys to slow down on making a decision on Goodrow.
We're not.
Okay.
We're not hurrying on that, Tab.
Okay,
We're not sold.
great.
Uh,
point.
And
That's
there's
about
also
it.
another point is that
I can
you're
talk
gonna
to
have
myself,
to,
I'm not so.
Okay.
Bob, it also sounds to me like you're gonna have to go back to your fire board and have them, place another motion on there that you're not using Goodrow. You can make that recommendation because as
That
it
was
stands
never
now,
done
you have
that way.
to.
I don't ever remember that saying that we were sticking with Goodrow through thick and thin. I do not recall that. I've been at the fire board meetings either as assistant chief or spectator, and I do not recall that. In
We
any of
okayed
them ever
Goodrow
said, I agree
start.
that we said, yes, we've spent it with them. We're not out anything for what we've spent. We're not gonna kick them to the curb, obviously. But we have never, that I recall anywhere, saying that that's who we're sticking with no matter what.
If you did, if that was decided at a board.
I don't know how
it'd
we
be in
could,
the
that's up
minutes.
to you guys.
Matt, it'd be in the minutes somewhere,
Yes.
right?
It's not.
Okay.
Good. Well, that makes it good then.
Was Joe
You're wide
taking
open then
minutes
as,
that day or
as the
what?
board.
Yeah.
Joe was taking minutes that day, and you have the minutes from that? Right.
Well, the thing is too, we keep that building around $1 million or so, it's within, as long as we find the financing for the 30 years, it's within our current budget, and that's like 99% of the goal, because you don't wanna go after more money, you don't wanna, and that's why this was brought up so hard a year or so again, as we figured out getting these prices back from these people. It was attainable for the current budget and within ones. I think they come up with, what was it, Matt, as long as it didn't go above 1.2 million, it was possible in the current budgets.
Well, we only was asking for 900,000 at the bank.
Right. But I'm saying, in the current budgets with the payments to 30 years, they figured it'd be between $1 million and $1.2 million within the current budget, without asking for any more money, needing any more money, that those payments could be made.
I guess, that to me seems like, well, I guess we beat that up enough then. I guess I have anything more on it. That was my biggest point, is that it isn't, there's other options as far as builders.
Well, I'd like to get a concrete answer. I'm not saying Bill doesn't know what he's talking about, but I'd like to have somebody, like an attorney, say, no, you do not need an attorney, you don't need an architect to build that building.
Right.
Well, I don't think that, you're gonna need an architect,
Gonna
but
need
you
an
don't
architect.
need a secondary
A
architect.
licensed architect or whatever to get a
Really
loan.
nice
That we
architect,
can get
really
a
nice
loan,
engineer.
and we can have an engineer and an architect.
Let me clarify. FED has an architect.
Right.
When they built my
I'm sure they
building,
do. Yeah.
the guy stamped it. What the guy at the bank told me is, you do not have to have a separate engineering company come up with a plan and
Okay.
advertise it for public bid.
Yep.
You can,
You're saying we can do this in-house, do
We-
all the bid work here, and since we're paying the 3 people up here, each and any from the townships, they could be like the superintendents or, the the project managers, is what I'm trying to. You guys can be the project managers and, go through the bids, get the best one, the most bang for a buck. And
that's exactly right.
instead of paying a company and a single company to do that, and they're gonna get 14% of the cost of them, it's no big deal to look at a piece of paper for 3 guys and say, well, look, oh, we don't need this, that's gonna take this much more off that. Well, they got it over here, and it's less, you know what I'm saying, where we could work the numbers, just like we did with a couple of the fire guys did it for FED and JBS. We went through each bid and found out which company was gonna give us the best building for the price, and you just compared the apples to the apples, and if it was which bundle had more apples, I
Thing
guess
is,
I
that
would
was
say.
all done, it's been done twice, getting bids, getting
yeah.
this stuff done, and keep going back to the financing issue. The financing is the issue. Like you said, Bob, it sounds like you just need to get a lawyer or whatever and say, are these people, can they legally bid this building if we go USDA? And then that takes all the question right out of it there. If they can't, then if Goodrow, or I can't remember these people over here are the only ones that can do it, then your hands are tied.
That's what we should do,
If
guys.
they're not-
We beat up 45 minutes so far.
Well,
Just
like I
doing
said last week though, we're in the early stages. Here we are back to, you know, financing, getting drawings out for bids. I mean, we got a long ways to go, guys, on this.
But I think you got financing confused with getting a grant. If you get a government grant to build it, then you gotta you gotta follow all the rules.
Yeah.
If you're just getting it financed, it's not the same.
I don't wanna say I know, Bill, but I can tell you the water main issue, the dam issue, those were loans from USDA. We had an architect and we had an engineer because that's what they require.
But there are grants, we know we can't get a grant.
No, and I know you can't get it. You could have, if you moved quicker a few years ago,
But I
but
guess
that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Not even worth it until we know.
Thank goodness.
Water in the
Right.
ditch, where we're at here is.
Can we at least establish that we want to move forward and go with the USDA loan? Because we know the banks won't loan us the money.
Check Michigan.
There's the state of Michigan.
State of Michigan, or, yeah, we got to check both. State of
I don't think you
Michigan.
should close your door on any avenue of finance except for the loan from the bank, because you obviously know you can't get
Right.
that.
It's on their website.
I wrote my email.
Okay, but they're,
This would
Yeah, I
have been
saw
done if we
that.
weren't here.
it's not federal government, this takes you down through it, and then it's got a municipal program. And you get to here,
Right
it
around.
talks about 3 years,
Done.
8 year loans, but it's not, it's not.
It's just a matter of where they're gonna
USDA,
get the
it's
money.
state of Michigan.
And how much they can get. And then they bid it out.
But only going 30, I don't know if we could make the payments.
This is
on
not.
30.
Well, I thought I just heard 30 years was in the budget. Didn't I hear that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
30 years.
according to, here we
we
go
could go
again, 2
forward.
years
Depending
ago.
on what the building
Figure,
and,
I was doing the math, if
They
you
were-
get 800,000 at a 3%, if you could get it down to 800,000, you could do that.
That was included
Included in that.
That's in that, right?
The
Main thing
112
is,
was
first
right
thing
down
is,
the line right out.
state of Michigan, USDA. That's the biggest question you guys have right now.
That's right. Yep. That's right. And that's what we need, really, before we can move